What's up, my friends in fantasy football fandom? We take a break from the movies as we've been doing every Wednesday for the last couple of weeks to talk football with you. Alongside the Shape for Low Star State, my man Tex. I'm Frank. What's up, everybody? What's going on, Tex? Doing all right, brother?
Oh, I'm doing well. I've just got my glass of San Francisco Tears ready to drink. It's very refreshing.
I got my glass of cowboy blood right here.
This is a glass of what I call Tom Landry victory right here. That it is goodwill for my Cowboys putting a beat down on them, questionable guys. Guys, can you call them guys in California anymore, or is that a hate crime? I'm not sure how that works anymore.
Well, I mean, guys, well, I don't know, whatever. Everything's bad in California anymore, so whatever. I never know. All I know is I'm a great Californian that lives 3,000 miles away from California. That's all I know.
There you go. You're a smart Californian is what you are. There you go.
Hey, I'd love to move back, but when you're paying $8,000 a month for a one-bedroom shack in the shittiest part of town, it's thanks, Gavin Newsom, douchebag. Anyway,
you're not a fan of homeless living on the street in front of your home.
No. That's a whole different show, though. We'll after the first of the year, we might dig into some political stuff. Right now, I gotta avoid it. But I don't want to alienate. Mostly because we're close to 500, and I don't want to alienate YouTube. That's kind of what
it's all in good fun, people. We're just joking. It's all fun.
YouTube doesn't care. They're run by a bunch of bitches. Anyway, that's right. I said it, YouTube. I don't give a shit. But here to talk football as always with the Shape from Lone Star State, my man Tex. Marcus not here right now. He actually had some family plans tonight, but we look forward to having Marcus back next week. But that's all right because me and Tex. I mean, it was me and you were going to dominate the air tonight anyway. The rivalry between our two teams. It's fun. I mean, let's be honest. It's fun.
Oh yeah.
It's a reminder that this is one of the things that makes sports so wonderful. Is I have so many friends that they like different teams. I have a good friend of mine, Frank Juvenella, who's in my sleeper league with us. He's a big Cincinnati fan, Bengals, Reds, and all that. So whenever one of our teams beats the other team, when we were working together for several years, one of us would walk across the other at work. We wouldn't brag or throw shade. We just look at each other and go. And the other one would know. We just look at each other and be like, okay, you win this round, but the next round's coming around. So we'll see you next time on the field of battle, my friend. That kind of respect that kind of respect is one of the great things that these rivalries are about. For fans like us who we have fun with the sport, but it's not a life and death thing. It may feel like it during game after kickoff and right until the last second ticks off, and that's what I always try to tell kids. I was like, take it really seriously and be passionate about it during the game. Once the final out is made, once the final second is ticked off the clock, walk away from it. Let it go.
Yeah. I used to not be that kind of fan. As a younger Cowboy fan, when they would lose or have a bad game, my entire week was just ruined. I was just in a bad mood constantly. But as I matured, I'm like, you know what? It's not like I'm getting a paycheck or putting on the shoulder pads. There's only so much I can do. So, you learn and you move on.
Well, when you're young, you're really emotional because I was a really emotional fan. I was like, my team's awesome and should never lose a game. All the other teams suck. Why did my team lose 35-0? Obviously, the refs are terrible. My team's so good. What happened? It wasn't until I was older I was like, oh, yeah, my quarterback sucks ass. We have no wide receivers. Our defense is like a sieve. It wasn't until I get older and stopped thinking emotionally and started thinking logically that I was like, oh, yeah, well, my team sucks this year. Yeah. It's like that's why.
Yeah.
But, it's the wisdom you get with age. You know what I mean?
It happens.
Yeah. But plenty to talk about. The first topic tonight is good God. I mean, putting together an Al Bundy level game. I mean, this was the stuff of legend.
He did get 4 touchdowns in one game.
Yeah, 4 touchdowns in one game. Was Christian McCaffrey. I mean, look, I was one of the people, and if the Rose were here, he would probably give me hell for this. I was one of the people that was kind of dogging on him for even drafting McCaffrey. Like, I think he drafted him 1 or 2 overall last year in the derailment.
Yeah.
And I was just I was like, this guy, he hasn't stayed healthy for 2 or 3 years. I mean, yeah, he's going to be great for 6 games and he's going to die or something. And then, of course, he gets traded to the Niners. And I was like, please don't get hurt a week after you get to San Francisco. I was like, because I know you're good, but I don't want to give up all this to get you to have my hopes dashed. But and of course, as soon as I say that this year, in the one league that I had the number one pick, I actually drafted a number one overall. I was just like, I don't know, either I'm gonna cruise with this guy or I'm gonna die with this guy. But one way or another, things seem to be going pretty well for McCaffrey right now. I mean, that 4 touchdown, well, not a whole lot of yardage. He had a couple of really big plays, and then like between the 20s, he had some plays, but it was just like he had that one like 30-yard touchdown, I think. But
he went
just 4 touchdowns, 140 total yards, I think.
He had 20 rushes for 106 yards and 3 touchdowns, 7 catches for 71 yards and a receiving touchdown.
Oh, so we're looking at so we're looking at about 180 total yards and 4 touchdowns. I mean,
yeah, about 180 total yards.
Yeah. All I know for sure, I pretty much, I think I only needed McCaffrey and one other player to win the league that I have him in. Like McCaffrey,
Really?
had ended up going off for like 30-something points. I forget who. But those 2 players alone would have helped me beat the guy that I beat that week in one of my friends' leagues. I didn't even need anybody else. They could have absolute zeros, and I still would have won that game by like 10 points. Just a ridiculous showing. I mean, is it too early to start talking MVP? And is McCaffrey up there? What do you think?
Well, how can you not? I mean, when you have a performance like that, I mean, it's kind of like how you say you can't win the title in week 5, but you can lose it. If this doesn't put him near the top of MVP consideration, I don't know what else will. I mean, does he have another game where he gets 4 touchdowns and does all this other stuff? Who knows? But I mean, to me, it really comes down to 2 people this year, either Tua or McCaffrey. I think that's between those 2 for the MVP. I can make a case for either, but I mean, the 4 touchdowns in one game, man, that's something. That's some Emmitt Smith level numbers right there. You know what I mean? That's big stuff.
I'm trying to figure out most touchdowns in a game. I know he's not anywhere near the record for most touchdowns in a game. I'm just trying to see. I'm trying to find out when the last time somebody scored 4. I mean, I would imagine it probably happens once or twice a year. But okay, so right now you've got McCaffrey had 4, and Raheem Mostert had 4 against the Broncos
a couple of weeks ago.
In that blowout game. Yeah. So it's happened a couple times this year already. Devon Achane, what I'm pronouncing his name wrong, I know I am. He actually had 4 touchdowns in that big blowout too, which is not at all surprising, really. And then last year, Kelsey did it. Kelsey was the only person to do it last year against the Raiders. And then you're going back to 2021.
I wish he would have done it Sunday night. It cost me 2 wins this week.
Yeah.
Idiot.
And then you go back to 2021 with Leonard Fournette. He did it for Tampa against the Colts, and then back into you're going back into it then. The record for touchdowns in a game is Alvin Kamara, Gale Sayers, and Dub Jones all had 6. Kamara did it. Kamara did it in 2020 against the Vikings. Gale Sayers did it in 1965 against the Niners, and Dub Jones did it in 1951 against the Bears for the Cleveland Browns. And then you got a couple of guys at 5 over the years. Most recently was Joe Mixon did it for Cincinnati against the Panthers in 2022. And then, going back into the, Rice did it once. Kellen Winslow Sr. did it once. Jim Brown. Wow. So yeah, I mean, 4 touchdowns in a game is no, it's nothing. It's not something that happens all the time, but I mean, yeah.
Well, and that really says something. I know Debo and Iaku, is that how you say his name for the 49ers? Is it? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Who are you talking about?
Iaku, the wide receiver for the 49ers. Ayuk, whatever.
Brandon Ayuk.
They've both had a lot of injuries, like not bad injuries, but like Debo Samuel, was his a rib thing that he had or something? Because I know he missed last week, or he missed 2 weeks ago, excuse me. Something like that.
Well, he's officially right now listed as questionable still, but he hasn't been limited practice or anything. So unless something really crazy happens, I expect him to play this week. But there's a few people. Jawan Jennings is beat up. He's got I think he had a wrist thing. I forget. I was reading about it the other day. He's got a wrist thing.
Right.
Debo's got the ribs. I think Ayuk's shoulder. I think he's still technically listed as questionable, but I mean he was fine last week.
Yeah.
But yeah,
because I know
no other news
after week 2. Because my main team that I have that's undefeated so far this year, I've got both Debo and Ayuk as my receivers, and after week 2, I haven't had both of them playing at the same time because of injuries and health concerns and whatever. But the thing with McCaffrey, though, the thing that I hate about the 49er offense, and we'll get into this at the end of the show, but they've got so many viable weapons. You know, I mean, McCaffrey may get 4 touchdowns this week, and he may not get any against Dallas because Debo's getting all the attention or somebody else steps up. You know, I mean, you never can tell with these things. And obviously we know his health situation you've already touched on. But, I mean, it seems like this guy is a feast or famine. Either he's on the bench or you can't get the guy out of the end zone, you know, because he's scoring on you 15 times a game. So, I mean, that's kind of football today. But, you know.
That's been the weird thing fantasy-wise about the 49ers I've noticed is that it's like Ayuk will have a big game where he gets like 180 yards and a touchdown, and Debo will get like 100 yards, you know, running, catching, whatever. Kittle will have whatever. Obviously, they're gonna feed McCaffrey a lot, so he's pretty steadily going to get his 100-something yards and maybe a touchdown every week. But when it comes to just the receivers, it's like it rotates. You'll have like one week where Kittle will blow everybody away, and then Ayuk and Debo will have kind of very average games. Then you'll have one game where Ayuk will blow up and like nobody else other than McCaffrey will put up any points at all. Then you'll have one week where Debo just goes nuts for 200-something yards and a couple of touchdowns, and like Ayuk's got like 4 catches for 50 yards, and like, you know, you get like 70-something yards, very average games with everybody else. It's like one of them always blows up fantasy-wise to the expense of another one. And I don't, and necessarily, you know, in real life, I don't care because it's good for the Niners. But fantasy-wise, it can be kind of unnerving because you have this. You look at this offense on paper, which puts up a good amount of points. You know, all these guys can blow up and just be huge boom candidates every week, but you never really know because it seems like every week it's a different guy, and it's hard to figure out which guy it's going to be from week to week. It could be Debo, Ayuk, Debo, Kittle, Ayuk. It's hard to figure. There's no pattern. It just really depends on what defense they're playing. If somebody's deep at defensive back, if they got a couple of good defensive backs, maybe Ayuk and Debo won't have big games, but maybe their linebacker core is not so strong. So Kittle over the middle is something that happens very easily. And then, of course, you know, you got McCaffrey who can swing out in the flat or take the handoff or whatever. Or maybe they have great linebackers, but not a very deep defensive back, you know, set up. Or maybe you're playing the wrong kind of defense for the Niners. And, you know, so then you've got all both these guys on the outside that are wide open, and Kittle gets like 3 catches for, you know, 45 yards. It's really difficult to kind of measure what fantasy-wise anyway, what the Niners offense is going to give you from week to week. That's the one thing I've struggled with because, like last year, somebody had tried to trade me Ayuk even though I already had Debo, and I was like, I don't know if I want both Niner receivers because I feel like one of them's going to blow up, the other one's going to throw me like 5 points. I want 2 guys that are going to give me a solid 12 to 15 points every game, and I don't know that the Niners wide receivers can do that fantasy-wise. Yeah, they're going to get stats and they're going to win, and they're going to win games in real life, but that doesn't necessarily translate to me winning a lot of fantasy games. Yeah, that's the weird thing about the Niners offense, the way it's built when it comes to the fantasy stuff.
Well, that's the whole thing is, I mean, I don't like having multiple players from the same team at a similar position. Kind of like what you were saying. Only one of my teams I have two receivers from the same team, and that's, you know, Ayuk and Debo. And that's just because I happen to get they fell to me in the draft, and I had to take them. I didn't have a choice. I would have been stupid not to. But here lately, I've been making a few trades, a few moves, whatever, and obviously with health, you know, stuff. Like I said, Debo was out the week before this, you know, 2 weeks ago. So I'm kind of leery about it, but Brock Purdy seems to spread the ball out enough that you can at least get manageable points out of them. So, you I mean, it is what it is. But I mean, as far as this game goes with McCaffrey, holy crap! Though it was. I wasn't watching it live, but this was one I went to YouTube to see the highlights of. Because, like you said, this is an Al Bundy Polk High record kind of game that he was going for here. And it was just like, I mean, even as a Cowboy fan, I'm like, oh, crap, we're going to have our freaking hands full. Which, this wasn't news to me. I knew this already. But, you kind of study ahead as a fan, when you've got like that Thursday night that your Niners played on Thursday Night Football. I checked that game out just because I was, I was pretending to be a scout for the team and I was getting information and whatever. But, it's just you want to see what's coming ahead and, all credit to McCaffrey and the Niners organization. I mean, even Jerry Jones said today or yesterday, it was on the radio. Even he came out and said the Niners probably have the best chance to win the Super Bowl right now. I mean, they're probably the best team. So, it is what it is, but we'll be talking about that at the end of the show. So, we'll see.
Yeah, that game is just ridiculous. And right now he makes it look so easy. And to be absolutely honest, I don't think the Niners even have the highest rated offensive line. It's just like McCaffrey's hitting holes, the holes that they are making, he's hitting him so fast. He swings to the outside, he's so fast. And even when he does get to kind of a tight spot, the guy's like, just like 205 pounds of pure muscle. He can hit these linebackers. And I mean, Christ, the guy can bench press a bulldozer. He looks like he's 4 feet tall. I mean, it's like he's not the tallest guy out there ever. But I mean, I don't know if you know anything about the McCaffrey family. I mean, that his dad was the wide receiver for the Broncos for years.
I don't know anything about him. I've never looked into him.
His dad was one of the wide receivers for the Elway teams that won back-to-back Super Bowls.
Really?
And that whole family is just they're just a gag of gifted athletes. Yeah, they're a bunch of gifted athletes, so he's got it in his DNA. But the guy's a brute. He can run between the tackles and hit a hole hard and go head to head with the linebacker, where he gets out in space, he makes guys miss, and he's fast. He hits that fifth gear like in 2 steps, and he's gone. He's just so ridiculously talented. I didn't even see when they traded for him. I was kind of like, I'm not going to get worked up about this right now because A, he had the injury history. And, B, I was just like, there's still other things that I worry about when it comes to the Niners, other than just trying to get another offensive weapon. I worry about the defense as well. And, of course, I still have some concerns about Shanahan until he doesn't blow a big lead in the Super Bowl or cough up some big game that I really want him to win. But I mean, right now, I feel pretty comfortable with our Niners, especially McCaffrey. I mean, the guy's just a beast. And you put him in there with, you're 3 or 4 weapons deep on offense. It's just ridiculous.
Now, as a Niner fan, does it concern you how complex of an offense that Shanahan runs on that team? I mean, to me, that would be kind of worrisome.
Not really, for a couple reasons. Number one, baseball was always my sport, not football, so I don't know football as well as I know baseball. So when it comes to like schemes and stuff like that, there are people out there that are way smarter than me. So I don't want to talk like I know everything about football. Number two, they're winning. I mean, I'm not gonna criticize.
You can't argue that.
Yeah, I can't argue. I wouldn't argue the Cowboys scheme. They're 3-1. They've got the one game that they've lost so far, which I think was probably more of one of those weird things, any given Sunday kind of things. I mean, so they could very easily be 4-0 right now. So it's like if you look, it's like they say, winning is the best deodorant. I mean, so
it is. Yeah.
And so as long as you're winning,
this is true.
Then whatever you're doing is working. Then you're doing a great job. Your scheme works. You know what I mean? So I can't knock anybody that's working. So I don't have any thoughts that I could say are clearly better than anything Shanahan's doing, or anything better than what John Lynch is doing as GM. So I mean, I'm just like, as long as you guys are winning, I'm not going to question you. That's kind of the sports fan I am.
Oh yeah, no,
except for when it comes to Giants baseball, I'll question the fuck out of them. I don't care if they win 100 games.
You had Gabe Kapler as your head man. He spent some time in Texas. I know how big of an idiot that he was. Like, we had him here for a while, so I know exactly who that dude is. But
yeah, I wasn't fond. I wasn't fond of the Gabe Kapler hiring. I was like, okay, I think there's other people, but whatever.
He never even as a player, he didn't really do anything. He was like a middle of the lineup guy that did nothing. So,
well, we'll dip into the baseball for a minute so I can say this. Here's where I'll defend Gabe Kapler. If you think about some of the best managers of the last 30 or 40 years, a lot of them were average players. Tony La Russa was an average player, and he won a bunch of World Series, with a couple with the A's, several with him. Joe Torre, not the best player in the world, won a bunch of titles with the Yankees. Now, granted, you can say the Yankees bought a bunch of players, whatever. Bottom line is he was a
checkbook won those.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys out there that you could say are really good managers that know how to manage the game, how to manage the players, how to use their bullpen, and stuff like that. So yeah, he was a middle of the road player, but a lot of middle of the road players have been great managers. A lot of really great players have tried to manage and not done very well. I mean, who was just passed away? Was it Brooke Robinson? Just passed away.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah, he was one of the great players, one of the great players of his generation. Great hitter, won a couple of World Series. He managed for a bit and didn't do very well. I mean, so there's a lot of players that try to manage that don't do very well. Craig Counsell, he's probably going to be leaving Milwaukee as their manager. He was a better than average player, I thought, when it comes to. I always like watching him play baseball during his career. Hasn't had a great success as a manager. Michael Jordan. I mean, greatest basketball player, arguably the best basketball player in history, a supreme athlete, fantastic. Has not been the best NBA executive. Everybody thought when he bought into Charlotte that he was going to win every title because he's Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan wins in basketball, and he hasn't had that kind of success. So I don't know. Going to San Francisco, Roger Craig, the guy who was there for all the great runs that the Giants had in the 80s, was a middle of the road player, but was manager of the year 2 or 3 times over his 8 years in San Francisco. So, I mean, sometimes you see the game and you teach the game better than you ever played the game. You know what I mean? And sometimes you played the game great, but you can't really teach it. It's really, really hard to find that package in the same person. It's very rare. I mean, Dusty Baker. I mean, you guys got Dusty Baker in Houston right now.
Yeah.
A pretty good player, hell of a manager. You know what I mean? But I don't know. It's whatever. Maybe me and Rose will start a baseball show for next season, and we can complain about.
So if you want to talk baseball, the Rose is your guy. If you want football or horror films, I can very easily fulfill that spot. But the only baseball I know is Texas Rangers, and everybody else sucks, and I hate all of you. But it is what it is.
Well, and bringing it back to football, it's kind of the same thing with football. If you look at some of the best football coaches, a lot of them weren't great players. I mean, Mike Ditka was one of the great coaches of the 80s, and one of the great coaches in history. He was a player who was a pretty average, maybe a little bit above average, but I mean, he was an average player, not anybody you'd have thought was going to be a Hall of Famer during his playing days. I mean, look at all these guys all these guys now. They're the coach for the Texans, D'Amico Ryans, was a good linebacker for several years. Was not. I don't think anybody was ever fitting him for the gold jacket for the Hall of Fame, but great coach. He's looking good right now. So
one I would add to that list, and he doesn't have quite the accolades as the others do, but I would have to add Jason Garrett to that list. I mean, when you look, not what he did with the Giants, but the run that he had with Dallas. Yeah, it was like 9 to 10 win seasons or whatever, but he had success with them. He was a great football mind. He just never had the opportunity to do anything because Jerry still coaches that team. You know what I mean? It's the same way with McCarthy now. But, I do think Jason Garrett has a tremendous mind for football, and he just didn't have the opportunity to actually fulfill it. But, it is what it is.
Yeah, but, moving on, there is another running back that I guess we should point some attention to. Jonathan Taylor is actually going to be ending his holdout or temper tantrum, whatever you want to call it. He's going to be reporting back to the Colts training facility this week. We could see him as early as this week. Probably not at full strength though. I think he'll probably be on a little bit of a pitch count at least until week 6. I'm not a big fan of holdouts, but I mean, you do what you got to do to get paid. There's a business side to sports that you can't deny. But I don't know, Tex, what are some of your thoughts on him finally ending his whatever the hell this was, wanting to get traded, holdout, and going ahead and rejoining the Colts?
I could not be happier because this means my first round draft pick for one of my teams is going to be on the frickin' field. Thank God. But I saw this earlier today, and I was, they're opening up the 21-day window to put him on the main, roster for the team. I wouldn't play him this week. Apparently the coach had him do a walkthrough today from what I read or something. So he hasn't had, I don't know how much full contact practice he's actually had. If I had to guess, probably not much. So just because he may possibly be available this week, I still wouldn't put him in as a running back, especially as my lead running back. I don't even think I'd put him in as a flex, but as far as him in contract wise, I don't see him in Indianapolis very long. I think his whole motivation is to play as good as possible so he can get out of Indy and they can be rid of him, because I don't think they want him there either. He kind of reminds me of Akers in the way of he's a talented dude in the wrong system. I would love to see him in a Cowboy uniform. So, Jerry, if you want to get that checkbook out, pony up and get this dude down here, we could, Tony Pollard, he would look great standing next to Tony Pollard. But, it's a lot of drama that I hope comes to an end, and he just gets out there and plays some freaking football. You know what I mean?
Yeah, here's why I think you're nuts for wanting him anywhere near the Cowboys. It's like, for one, you've got Tony Pollard. He's your number one back.
Right.
He wants to be in Dallas. Dallas wants to have him. They're in a good situation together right now. You bring him in.
And we have Deuce, too. Deuce is good, too.
Yeah, he wants to be the feature back somewhere. If he went to Dallas, he wouldn't be the feature back. And that would bother him. It would cause animosity with Pollard. I think you're better on. Now, this is a very Jerry Jones kind of move to make. And I wouldn't be surprised if what is the trade deadline? Is it week 8 now?
8 or 9, something like that.
We'll look real quick. But I mean, there is still some time between now and the trade deadline. I mean, let's be honest. NFL trade deadline. Let's be honest. For the Colts, the only thing that would make them want to put him on the field right now is to showcase him for a potential trade. There's really no reason for them to play him at all. I mean, obviously he doesn't want to be there anymore. Teams have until 4 p.m. Eastern time on October 31st to trade players. I don't know what week that is, so that's about a little more than a month from now. But while no team is mathematically made for the playoff shows, can clear some aren't destined to compete. So it's Halloween basically is the trade deadline, 4:00 Halloween. But right now they're only putting him out there to showcase him. I mean, why bring a guy in if he's going to be moping around, if he's going to be one of those locker room cancers? Why bring him in unless you're like, okay, we need you to have a couple of 100-yard games so that somebody will give us a second-round pick for you, just so we can get you out of here and be done with you. That's why they're doing this. I mean, otherwise, I'd have looked at him and been like, nah. If he weren't with us in the beginning, if your little temper tantrum was really your best shot at getting traded or getting more money out of us, whatever. I don't like doing that. I hate when players do that, but yeah, that's all they're doing right now is they're trying to make him look good so they can trade him.
Well, I know Miami and Philadelphia had both actually sent offers to Indianapolis for Jonathan Taylor. Now, I don't think it was ever disclosed what was in those offers, or draft picks or money or players. I don't know. I never saw. But I can't help but wonder how much of the Colts trying to get out of this guy. Because, I mean, if you've got two, big teams, Miami and the Eagles, both coming after him, surely one of those teams gave a a pretty good offer for him, I would think. But maybe it's not Taylor that's the problem. It could be the Colts organization that's just trying to get a fortune out of this guy, and nobody's willing to pay it. I mean, it could be that as well. You know what I mean? It's just, who knows? I know. Let's see. The Colts have won their last 2 games, I think, and I can't remember the name of the running back that they brought up last week. He did all right this past game, but you know, I mean, do you think he'll be activated for this week though? I don't think he will. Maybe limited at the very least.
Who do they play this week? Let me pull up my stuff.
Is it Houston? I'm not sure.
Let's see, NFL schedule.
Good news by the Chargers. What's up, crazy blade?
Scores for that's not only week 4, only week 5. Players, teams. Let's see, we're looking at the Colts. So let's look at their schedule real quick. I have Pro Football Reference already pulled up, so I'm kind of.
I know they've won.
Usually I look at historical stats.
Oh, really? I know Indianapolis has won their last 2. But I think they have Houston this week. Or were they last week?
Okay, so they lost to Jacksonville week 1. They beat Houston and Baltimore in week 2 and 3. They lost to the Rams in overtime last week. So they got Tennessee coming up this week. So I don't know. I'd probably hold him out for one more week, let him get his legs under him. I mean, I don't know what their current running back situation is, but
Tennessee's not doing well. I don't know if Ryan Tannehill, another one of my Aggies, will be playing quarterback for Tennessee this week because I think isn't he coming out of concussion protocol or something like that? He had some kind of injury. I can't remember. But I mean, Tennessee would be a pretty good warm-up game for him. So I don't think they start him, but maybe they activate him and just get, have him on a snap count, basically. Just, 10, 15 plays. He's probably not even going to get that much, but kind of treat it as a preseason game. You know what I mean? Tennessee's not great. I mean, it is what it is.
There is no quarterback on the injury report as of September 29th.
Okay. Well, maybe Tannehill's back healthy because I know Tannehill, he had some injuries that he was dealing with this past week or whatever. But I don't know. Like I said, maybe if I were the coach here, maybe I activate him and keep him on a snap count just to get him back into motion. Like I said, if he's going through walkthroughs, he can still get in 2 full practices before the weekend, before the game. So, it's possible that we see him on Sunday, but I don't think we're going to see him in a major role.
Yeah, I'm trying to take a look at their roster real quick. Let's see. I missed the days where basically a position group had certain numbers. It was so much easier to look at the shit. Now pretty much they're just like, I want to be number 99 and be a running back. Let's see. You got, Chestnut's on IR. They've got Hassan Haskins on IR. Those are 2 running backs. Let's see what else we got here.
Right.
They got, Derrick Henry still healthy, though he hasn't been very productive.
Henry hasn't done anything this year. I was talking to a buddy of mine who's a big Titans fan. He is so pissed because he took Henry high in the draft. I don't know if he said he was his number 1 pick or not. He may have been. But Derrick Henry has not produced what you would expect him to. He's another kind of Joe Burrow type that hasn't done anything. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, they have Tajay Spears, who, Henry's only got less than 300 yards rushing for the year. Christ, McCaffrey got almost that last week. Yeah,
I mean, he got 106 on the ground and 71 through the air. So, he's got over half of his full production this season. So, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, it's at this point if you're Indianapolis, the only reason you're even letting him in the building is because you want to start to make him look good to other teams, so that they might say, okay, instead of giving you the 3rd round pick, we'll give you the 2nd round pick and whatever, or some shit. They're just trying to shine him. They're trying to polish him up and put him out there on the showroom floors and somebody buys him. That's the only real reason to even have him around. Because other than that, I don't understand why you would want somebody in the locker room who doesn't want to be there.
I could stick with Nick Chubb going down in Cleveland. I could see Cleveland offering a pretty hefty offer to get him to replace what they lost. Obviously, Nick Chubb. I think Nick Chubb is a better running back than Taylor is, but Taylor is better than what they're working with now. You know what I mean? I don't know what the Browns have to offer to trade or whatever, but I could see them presenting something. You know what I mean? It's Cleveland. It is what it is.
Yeah, but I mean, what is Cleveland going to give up, though? You don't want to give up a lot of draft picks because you kind of want those to build your team up. And let's face it, you're not getting a lot of free agents in Cleveland. Nobody wants to go to Cleveland and play, so you kind of have to. You got to depend on guys like Odell Beckham who need to go someplace to be a reclamation project, or you got to depend on the draft where the guy doesn't necessarily have a choice when he's coming out of college. So I don't know. I don't know what they have to give up.
They do have Amari Cooper over there, which he still should have a star on the side of his helmet, not a freaking orange Cleveland Browns helmet. I'm pissed when Jerry didn't re-sign him. But because that made CD have to step up, and that's just the whole thing. But maybe Amari Cooper is a trade bait kind of thing. I don't know. There's draft picks, players, money. I mean, who knows? Like I said, somebody's going to step up and put in an offer for him. I got a feeling that it'll, like you said, the culture just going to shine this guy up, make him look good enough to, oh, hey, look what this guy can do, and then give us a 2nd round and a, conditional 4th or something, whatever it may be. But yeah, I could see something like that. I think that's a viable option.
The reason why I think you're in a good position having him on your roster is because he knows he's playing for a trade. Indianapolis knows he's playing for a trade. They're going to feed him.
Right.
He's going to keep trying to go out there and just bulldoze people to try to make himself look good so that he gets the deal that gets him somewhere where he wants to go. So from a fantasy perspective, I think that's kind of why this is going to work out for you or anybody else that's kind of stashed him that drafted him and just kind of stashed him somewhere on the bench until he decided to go play.
The only reason why I say I would want to see him with a star on the side of his helmet is because Tony Pollard is a tremendous field runner. Between the 20s, he's money. But what Dallas is missing, because Dallas only has 1 touchdown within the red zone this whole season offensively, they don't have that power punch running back. That was Zeke, but obviously Zeke got hurt. We didn't keep him. He's up there playing for New England, and I think his longest run this season is 7 yards. I don't even think he scored a touchdown this year. But Dallas doesn't have, for the last number of years, Dallas has been working with with that 2-back system that I think Jonathan Taylor would fit really well in. And they've been supplementing that second part with Deuce and a couple other people. But I don't know. It just maybe, obviously, like I said, Jerry likes to make moves. And this is Jonathan Taylor's a star player. And, Jerry's willing he's willing to mortgage the future for right now. And this is a move that I think he should consider. You know what I mean?
Yeah, all I know is we don't need him. Niners don't need him. We're good.
You've got freaking Al Bundy on your team scoring 15 touchdowns. Yeah, it is what it is.
I'm gonna get a Polk High School jersey with McCaffrey's name and number on it.
That'd be great.
Best game of all time.
Get a Polk High jersey, but in Niner colors, and it says McCaffrey on the back. That's what you need to go get. Instead of blue and white, get that.
I'll take a Polk High jersey with Al Bundy's number on it. I don't care. that's good stuff.
I don't have a Polk High jersey, but I do have a No Ma'am T-shirt. I don't know where it is, but I do have a No Ma'am T-shirt. So, it is what it is.
I'm kind of jealous. A No Ma'am T-shirt would be kind of dope.
I got it for Christmas a few years ago. it's pretty
For
good.
those of you in our age group, trust me, if you get the reference, you are a special human being if you get the reference. Oh yeah, that's good stuff. But let's move on into some of that heavier fantasy talk now. Let's get on to the waiver wire targets now. Tex, again, every week I want to remind people: you win your league, the draft, and at the waiver wire, especially the waiver wire. Who are you targeting on the waiver wire this week, and why?
Well, like I was telling you before we went live, I was kind of digging around because a couple of my teams are injury prone or whatever, especially in the running back and wide receiver position. So I kind of had to dig deep. And there's two names that I found that seem to be really good pickups here. The first one is Jaleel McLaughlin, the Denver Broncos running back. He's a rookie. They just drafted him this year. He's been bumped up to the top spot with their running back one going out. Last week, he went 7 rushes for 72 yards and 3 catches for 32 and a touchdown. So this guy's kind of a multi-level threat, both in the air and on the ground. Obviously, he's an unproven rookie. But you know what? Sometimes your whole season can be made up on a rookie pickup. On that same logic, the Arizona Cardinals, Michael Wilson, he's a wide receiver. They've got him playing 68% of the plays. So far this year, he's got 14 catches for 237 yards and 2 TDs. Now, when you add that up for a season whole, that's not like, oh my God, I have to draft this guy. But if you need like a wide receiver 3 or a flex or something, and there's nobody available in your league, odds are this guy's probably available. And I picked him up on a couple teams, and I'm really, really hoping these dudes pay off because fantasy football's been weird this year. We were just talking about Derrick Henry not producing. There's a lot of stars in the past that I don't know, they just fell off or they're just having a bad year or whatever they are. But these two guys might be able to help your teams out if they're available in your league. I don't have what percentage that they're rostered on. I did not write that down. So you'll have to look that up for yourself. But, these are two names that can help. You know what I mean?
Yeah, McLaughlin is one of the guys I also had on my list. I hadn't looked to see where he was on the what percentage he was. But one of the things I like about McLaughlin is, with Javonte Williams out with a hip flexor right now, he may miss a couple of weeks. They've got some decent matchups coming up in Denver right now, fantasy-wise anyway. I mean, I'm not sure that Denver's going to win a game all year, but they have some decent fantasy matchups coming right now. Look, I know he's in a team that's not firing on all cylinders right now, but even last week in a bad offense, he had 104 yards on 10 touches and a touchdown. That's 16 points in basic scoring. And in PPR, it gets you an extra couple of points. The key for him, though, is looking how long Williams is going to be out. If he actually misses 2 to 3 weeks, I think McLaughlin could be a steady fill-in as a flex, or if you need somebody to fill in like a matchup basis, he probably wouldn't be a bad guy. I don't know that he's going to be great this week. They're playing the Jets. The Jets defense, despite all their offensive struggles, Aaron Rodgers.
Jets got a solid defense.
The Jets have one of the top 5 defenses in the league, so maybe he would be a low-end flex this week if you had to, but yeah, I do like McLaughlin. He's one of the guys that I was looking at too. The other one, I mean, to me, if you need a quarterback, look, we talked last week about how quarterback play has been really spotty all year, especially fantasy wise. Look at Josh Dobbs in Arizona. I feel like he's last year we had Seattle, what's his name, why would I drawing a blank at his name?
Geno Smith.
Geno Smith, yeah. We had Geno Smith last year who kind of bounced around the league. Didn't work out with the Jets when he got drafted, back up a couple places. He goes in last year basically to be a stopgap player, ends up becoming comeback player of the year, put up solid numbers, both fantasy-wise and stat-wise in the NFL. Dobbs could be that this year. So think about this for just a second. Right now, he's rostered on just 19.5% of ESPN leagues. That's actually up 18% over the course of the last week or so. So people are starting to recognize him. But still, 19.5% of leagues is available. He's available in a lot of them. He had a bad week 1, but since then, he's put up 65.7 points over the last 3 weeks. He's got the 5th most among fantasy quarterbacks over that span. He's the 5th ranked quarterback. Let's see. weeks 2, 3, and 4, he's thrown for 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and has a 106.1 quarterback rating for those games. He put up 23.4 points against the Niners defense that up to that game had only allowed 27.8 points to all quarterbacks all year long in the fantasy space.
Right.
And he's got a good matchup if you're suffering. He might be a good matchup play if you're suffering through the bad quarterback play of guys like Joe Burrow, or if you got stuck with Zach Wilson because Aaron Rodgers got hurt, or if you're one of those people that's struggling to find a quarterback right now. He's going to be a solid matchup play down the stretch because we don't know when Kyler Murray is coming back. I have a feeling unfortunately, it might be sooner rather than later because I think Kyler Murray is seeing this. He's like, wait a minute, this guy's putting up good numbers with this team that is trying to lose. Maybe I could go out there and put up shitty numbers and, maybe work, kind of find himself where Jonathan Taylor is at right now. Maybe try to swing a trade or get released and get some love on the free agent market or whatever. But yeah, Josh Dobbs is one guy. There's a couple of surprising performances this year. We talked about C.J. Stroud last week in Houston. I think this is a guy who could put up, at least for the next 3 to 5 weeks, is going to be a solid player. Now, second time around, the second time through the league, as they get more and more tape on him, it might be different. He's got to play the 49ers again. I don't know the schedule off the top of my head, but I mean, he's a guy right now that I think is going to put up some points for the next several weeks. I mean, nobody's taking Arizona seriously, so maybe they're resting some of their defenders against Arizona, or maybe you've got your big quarterback who's nursing a hamstring. You're like, he's going to see about 15 plays against Arizona, and then we're not really going to throw him out there because we're probably going to win the game anyway, and then maybe they will. But Dobbs can exploit that for some good fantasy points. Those are the two guys that really jumped out at me. The only one that worries me is McLaughlin. Again, you don't really know what Javonte Williams' injury really is. We don't know if he's going to miss significant time. Their offense isn't that great anyway. He's kind of like bouncing back and forth between second and third on the depth chart. But he's got a lot of promise, and I like him. I actually picked him up in one of my leagues just to have him for the next couple of weeks just in case. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you on McLaughlin. But yeah, Dobbs is one that, again, with the spotty quarterback play that we talked about last week, could be a guy that a lot of people could go and get. Him and C.J. Stroud are the two guys that are kind of like, they're percolating to the top slowly. C.J. Stroud actually, I think, knocked Joe Burrow out of the top 10 of fantasy quarterbacks this last week. Like when they went through their fantasy rankings, like C.J. Stroud was like number 9 and Burrow had fallen to like 12 or 13 or something like that. And this is Burrow.
Well, I think C.J. Stroud, it was either in passing yards or quarterback rating. I can't remember which, but C.J. Stroud is like a top 5 quarterback in the league right now, which is crazy to think on a team that's as bad as Houston is. That offense, I mean, Nico Collins, he is blowing up right now. He is going crazy. And he is obviously Stroud's favorite target. That's why I've bumped him up to a couple of my teams. He's my number 1 wide receiver. And I was just lucky enough to get him in a few leagues. But no, there's a lot of injuries this year have been terrible. I mean, it seems like every week, this guy's out for the year, ACL, blah, 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 this, that, whatever, concussions, whatever it may be. And this year for fantasy has been harder for me. Number one, because I'm running our secondary league that we're doing. But 2, I'm trying to run 7 freaking fantasy teams. Last year I just did 2. So, it's much more of a workload I'm doing here. But, I know a lot of fantasy players out there are really having to dig deep into the player well because injuries have they're tearing people up.
Yeah, I'm looking at this. I just put the link in the chat for anybody who wants to go follow it. Sports Illustrated Week 5 Fantasy Football ratings at quarterback. You got Mahomes number 1, Allen number 2, Hurts number 3. That kind of makes sense. Anthony Richardson for some reason is number 5. I don't know if I get that, but I haven't been watching him that closely this year so far, so I don't know. Cousins number 7 makes sense. He may not win a lot of the big games in Minnesota, but he puts up good numbers. I don't know how Justin Fields is in the top 10. Maybe they're just basing it on the matchups. I don't know.
That makes no sense to me.
Yeah,
I'm surprised. That makes no sense.
Yeah, I don't get that at all. C.J. Stroud is 12. Purdy's 14, Dak is 15. And then you got Josh Dobbs at 18, Burrow at 19, Zach Wilson for some reason is at 21. He should be last. Well, I don't know. Mac Jones, who is just not doing well. Derek Carr, who was was so bad.
Mac Jones
didn't.
Mac Jones is on the bench. He's not on that list.
Yeah,
he got put out Sunday. So it is what it is.
And then Desmond Ridder in Atlanta. I mean, he's already kind of falling to the wayside in Atlanta. They've got some quarterback problems there too. So, yeah, that's according to SportsIllustrated.com going into Week 5. It's for me. I don't know the quarterbacks, but I like Josh Dobbs. I think I don't know if he's a long-term answer for anybody, even fantasy-wise, but for the next few weeks, I think he can get you a couple of points. You know what? I have to go look at their schedule now because I'm kind of curious. Let's see.
Well, let's see. They got
the Cardinals.
Trying to remember. How long is Kyler Murray out for? Do you know?
I don't know if he's out because he wants to be or he's actually hurt. Let me look. Well, he's not even on the injury report on here. It's weird, but
I don't know the situation with Kyler Murray.
Yeah, they're 1-3 right now. Josh Dobbs has got a 70% completion percentage. He's thrown for 814 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions.
Wow.
Those aren't bad numbers. I mean, that's not bad numbers to start with. I mean,
no,
they're 1-3, but the entire team kind of sucks.
Well, the only real weapon that Arizona's had is the running back in Connors over there.
Yeah.
Besides that, they don't really have any kind of credible threat. Like, I mean, I know they beat my Cowboys, but even watching that game, there was no real stars. It was just like, holy crap! Any given Sunday, that's like you just said a few minutes ago. It just we didn't come in ready, and you were more prepared than we were. So. Yeah, I don't know. It's but Connors is their only real weapon. But that's why I said, McLaughlin he seems to be legit. I mean, untested rookie, but sometimes you take a chance and it pays off. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like the idea of Josh Dobbs. So if you need some quarterback help going on the next couple of weeks, I think you can rely on Josh Dobbs. There's actually a couple of quarterbacks. I had somebody else in my head that I wanted to mention, but I totally forgot who the hell it was. So maybe I'm wrong, but But now let's move on to my favorite section, the panic button. Boy, I really got to get like a siren thing for this. But I don't know. Like I said, last week I finally, maybe I reacted quickly. Maybe I was just wrong for thinking I was getting the best pick ever. But yeah, I finally hit the panic button, and even in some case, in a couple of leagues, the eject button on Derek Carr. Who are you panicking on this week, Tex?
Well, this week's panic button for me is kind of weird because this is not a player that I have drafted on anything, but he directly affects one of the players that I did pick, and that's Jimmy G there in Vegas. I've got Devontae Adams as one of my main wide receivers, and him with a rookie quarterback, his numbers went into the toilet. So, obviously Jimmy G's had the concussions and the issues and the everything else. The shoulder problems that Devontae Adams had, there's a couple of issues within here. But I really, really need Jimmy G to get back to form like he used to be in San Francisco and start feeding my boy Adams some, deep balls so we can get some scores and some points here. Because I don't know what contract they give Garoppolo, but he needs to go freaking earn it. So yeah, I'm a bit worried about Mr. Former Niner here. So,
yeah. The problem with Garoppolo going to the Raiders wasn't his. I mean, he obviously has some familiarity with Josh McDaniels. I think Josh McDaniels was in New England when they drafted him, so he played for him before. They know each other. They have a rapport. That sounds good on paper. The problem is the Raiders are one of those franchises that have always had a little bit of dysfunction. It's really hard to go into a franchise that's always been a bit dysfunctional and be successful, especially right off the bat. Even if you're somebody who's a veteran like Garoppolo who's had some success. But Yeah, and on top of that, let's face it, he doesn't have nearly the level of offensive weapons that he had in San Francisco. I mean, he's got Devontae, which is great. He's got Renfro, which is good. Waller is not bad, but I mean, you're not talking about San Francisco 49ers level of offensive weapons. So that said, Jimmy G is still a good quarterback. I don't know that he's going to be anywhere near as successful as he was in San Francisco. I think the system in San Francisco helped kind of mitigate his negatives a lot and gave him a chance to just kind of like do the stuff that he does well. I think they want him to try to stretch the field a little bit to Devontae Adams and some other guys, and I just don't think he's that kind of quarterback. I just think he's got to do kind of the classic stuff that the Niners used to do back in the 80s, like the quick slants, the stuff out in the flat, things like that, the high percentage plays, and just kind of let your receivers do the work after the catch. I don't know that anybody outside of Devontae can really do that. But for me, again, I was kind of hoping that a young quarterback in his first full year as a starter in Jordan Love would mean that Green Bay was going to lean on their running game a lot. So I drafted A.J. Dillon kind of in the middle rounds of the draft in one of my leagues because I was like, they're going to hand the ball off a lot, especially for the first half of the season while Jordan Love tries to get comfortable. He might check down a lot as he's trying to figure out his relationship with his receivers. That's going to help. The guy's an absolute shit. I mean, like I said, I hoped he would have platooned with Aaron Jones. It just hasn't happened. But even with Jones out for a couple of weeks and not very effective last week, he didn't do much. In the last 3 weeks, he scored 7, 3, and 1 fantasy points while Jones was out. And to top it all off, Jordan Love is actually kind of starting to click with his receivers. So that means less dependence on the running game. So I've already dropped him in one of my leagues and picked up somebody else because I need a bye week fill it anyway for a flex. I'm sorry, but 7, 8, 9, 11 points over the last 3 weeks. I mean, McCaffrey had that on one rush last week. So I need somebody who's at least going to give me 6 to 8 points in a pinch and on my bench or maybe as a flex. I just can't. I can't. Yeah, crazy. Waller did go to the Giants. That's right. I forget who they have at tight end now. I forget who the Raiders have at tight end now. But yeah, that's the one where I was hoping that he would at least be a solid like flex, maybe even a fill-in guy for the season, but it's just not happening. So I went ahead and sent him back, and I forget who I picked up earlier. Is it on this league? I forget. I picked up I think I picked up McLaughlin actually, who is projected to get 8 points, which is almost what Dillon has gotten for the last 3 games combined. So yeah, it's just
A.J. Dillon.
It's disappointing to me because they do have a history the last several years of Green Bay and having a solid run game. But I think a lot of that was Rodgers stretching the field to his receivers and stuff like that. I was hoping that they would rely on it a little bit more, but it just hasn't come around the way I wanted, which in part is a good thing because Jordan Love is getting better. But for fantasy perspective, it's just not good.
I had A.J. Dillon and Jarrett McKinnon were my 2 main running backs last season that carried me to the freaking championship in our derailed league that we had. And they were both just rock solid players. Every week they were bringing it in. And this year, both of them have fell off. It's not that they forgot how to play football. They're just not doing it. So I dropped A.J. Dillon a couple weeks ago. I think I had him on 2 or 3 teams, but I haven't started him at all this year. But I don't blame you if you're, for getting rid of him, especially for McLaughlin. Even though McLaughlin's, like I said, untested and unproven. But I agree with your pick on that one. I mean, I'd be panicking on him too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we're getting into that really interesting part of fantasy season where we're starting to hit some bye weeks now. This is obviously the first week of the season where bye weeks are going to be an issue. I've got Justin Herbert, one of my starters, on a bye week. Lockett's on a bye. The running back for Tampa.
Are you worried about Herbert's broken finger? How bad do you think that's going to affect him?
I don't worry about it right now because I just picked up Dobbs, and I feel like I've got somebody who can at least toe the line and get me decent points. I not necessarily because they've got a few weapons. I mean, he can hand the ball off. He's got running back. Why am I drawing a blank on these names all of a sudden?
Eckler?
Yeah. Yeah, so he's got Austin Eckler, so he can hand the ball off. They've still got a couple of good wide receivers that can still run short routes, so he doesn't have to stretch the field and go down downfield. Boy, I cannot type today. But not yet. I mean, I haven't heard anybody else really talking about him, so I'm not really worried about it. Let me go look real quick. I'm not really liking Pro Football References injury reports because there's a lot of stuff on here that is just he's not even on the Week 4 injury report for that's weird.
Really?
I just think maybe Pro Football Reference is just a week behind or something like that.
When's the last time they updated that site?
Well, it just says Week 4 injury report, so maybe they don't have they don't
have Week 5 done.
But they've got Austin Eckler listed as doubtful with an ankle injury. Bosa is doubtful with a hamstring injury. Let's see. Keenan Allen is limited with a hip. Boy, I feel like Keenan Allen's always had hip problems. but
every one of those players that you just listed, I have on some team, and I've had to bench them, even though they were supposed to be starters for me. So I'm not happy about it.
Yeah, but Herbert's got he's got a 71% completion percentage. He's thrown for 1,100 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 1 pick this year. That's not terrible. I mean, he's that's decent fantasy numbers. I can't knock it. But yeah, I'm not so worried about him right now. I don't really watch the Chargers that closely anyway. I mean, honestly, Herbert, I think I had drafted as kind of a backup anyway. That's one of the leagues where I think I had drafted him and Carr, and I dumped Carr and I benched Carr and put in Herbert because I was like, Carr sucks. At least Herbert's gonna give me some points. Now Herbert's on a bye, so I just went ahead and dropped Carr and picked up Dobbs, and I'm just gonna start Dobbs because he's projected to score 18 points against Cincinnati. Cincinnati's not been doing well, so maybe that's a good matchup for him. So I don't know. We'll see.
Right.
But let's get on to a new segment now. I think it's time for the new segment. That's right. Where I put the pressure on Tex. Tex, I want you to pick 3 games. This is called Texas Pick 3 Games. I want you to pick 3 games. Tell me who's going to win and why.
All right. We quickly came up with, well, not quickly, but this was put into place this afternoon. But my 3 games that I've got. My first one, I'm going to go Lions over Panthers 21-10. Lions are hot right now. They're on their hype train. They're on their whatever. Until they win something, I'm still going to say I don't believe in them until they prove me wrong. I'm sorry. You're the Lions. You've sucked for 100 years. Until you do something, that's my stance on it. But Lions are hot. Panthers are garbage. I think Lions hang 21 on them in a pretty easy fashion. Then we're going to go to the 4-0 Eagles. They're playing the Rams this week. Rams aren't bad. Rams are going to be a little bit of a competition, but I think the Eagles will stay undefeated at 28-17 because Eagles both they're moving the ball any way they want. On the ground, through the air. Justin Hurts is having a field day with that offense. I don't see them really struggling, even though the Rams will put up some good points. Now, my main pick here, I kind of had to think about this one. I like both of these teams talent-wise, but I'm picking the Chiefs and the Minnesota Vikings game. The Vikings ranked up. They're 1-3 or a record does not reflect how good this team actually is. You've got Kirk Cousins, who's kind of a game manager quarterback, but the talent they have on this team is ridiculous. But that being said, unfortunately, they're coming up a game against the Chiefs where after that Sunday night performance, I really feel like they were held back. Or they were holding back, excuse me. I think the Chiefs want to come out and show something here. I'm going to say the Chiefs go over the Vikings 31-21. I think we're going to see one of those Mahomes, Kelsey, Batman and Robin kind of deals where they're just tearing the field up and the Vikings can't stop it. So I'm going to lock all 3 of those in. Chiefs over Vikings 31-21. Eagles over Rams 28-17. and Lions over Panthers at 21-10. So we'll check back next week and see if I was right or I'm an idiot. But hey, if I was wrong, please make fun of me in the comments. That's what it's there for. So it's all good. So.
Yeah, I like all those. I think Detroit's just better than Carolina right now. I think Carolina is in a rebuild. A couple of years from now, they could be good again. But I like Detroit over Carolina 21-10. Philly over the Rams, I like 28-17. I feel like the Rams might be starting to bring it together a little bit. So I feel like they can make that a closer game, that it might be a 28-21 or something like that. Or maybe it'll come down to whoever has the ball last thing. But I don't think they beat Philly. So I think that's probably right. Minnesota could theoretically, that's the one upset that I think could happen of these three. Because I feel like there's a couple of games I feel like they could catch fire, and they're going to do something insanely because who'd have thought that the Jets were going to beat Buffalo in Week 1? I mean, especially after the fourth play of the game and Aaron Rodgers breaks himself and you're back to Zach Wilson, that train wreck of a quarterback. I mean, any given Sunday, but yeah, Minnesota's got a lot of talent. They've got a good quarterback. Like I said, he wins a lot of games and he puts up good numbers. He just hasn't won the playoff games and hasn't had a chance to get anywhere near a Super Bowl. But in Kansas City, like I said, I feel like past Travis Kelce, they don't have much. And there's only and I don't think that
we saw that.
Yeah, and I don't think that it's like Brady made his wide receivers better. As much as I love to hate on Brady, Brady made his wide receivers look good. He was that kind of a quarterback. He would throw them open. There were things that he did under center, and with the ball in his hand that made the wide receivers look better. I don't think Mahomes does that. I mean, if you'd have given Brady in his prime, if you'd have given him a guy like Sky Moore, it would have taken him a year to get the chemistry just right. But Sky Moore would have put up massive numbers. He's now in year 2 with Patrick Mahomes, maybe the best quarterback playing right now, and he's kind of fledgling. He's not really hitting his potential, I think. I just don't. It's like it's a Travis Kelce show. I mean, it's past, and that 1 week they didn't have Kelce, they lose. They're like, oh, because they didn't have Kelce. It's like, well, then how good are you if your only real weapon being on the sideline hurt or whatever, and you are losing games that you should win? That to me is a warning sign. So I feel like if there's going to be any upset this week, and I'll make this my official upset alert if it's possible that it might happen, I feel like Minnesota could beat Kansas City. I don't think they will. I think as long as Kansas City plays Kansas City football, they're probably going to win, probably in the kind of score that you said, because their defense hasn't been fantastic either. But yeah, I like all three of those games. I think you're pretty good on all of them.
I went high on Kansas City at 31 because I think, like I said, I think they got embarrassed by the Jets on Sunday night, and kind of like how Dallas came out hard and heavy 38-3 against New England. Kansas City's going to come out and have something to prove of. We are the champs. We're still on top. And unfortunately, I think Minnesota is the one that takes that beating. Like I said, I'm still giving 21 to Minnesota because they've still got Jefferson and everything else. But I think the Chiefs still take them. So we'll find out by this time next week. So we'll see.
Let me see if I can check out the defense. I'll just go to NFL.com. It's so much easier. Trying to figure out exactly what the let's see, go to fantasy. I'm kind of curious as to what their defense ranks right now in Kansas City.
They're I think they're like around 10 or 11. I'm pretty sure. I was looking that up earlier.
Defenses. Right now, they've got Cowboys, Buffalo, Steelers, Seahawks. Oh, these are projected points. Sorry, I'm not quite looking at the overall rankings. Let me try this again. I'm looking at projected fantasy points. I was just like, I don't know if I put the Seahawks in the top 5, but whatever.
Oh, yeah, Kansas City's got a good defense. I've got a couple of my teams. I have the same exact defenses. I've got Kansas City and I've got Dallas. I started with Dallas defense, but after that Arizona game, I sat them, and unfortunately, I didn't get the points from that 38-3 beatdown, so I left 26 points on my bench that ended up factoring into my team's going 4-3 this week was my record. I should have been 6-1, but it is what it is. That's how fantasy goes. Sometimes you don't always do your best, but you go with your gut. So I don't know. It's Kansas City's defense.
Kansas City has given up the 7th most passing yards this season. They've given up 8 touchdowns, and they've got 6 interceptions. Rushing, let's see, they've got defense. Let's see, rushing, they have given up. Well, rushing, they're better. So you got to find them on here. Yeah, they've only given up 762 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns. So that's not terrible. But they don't generally have an overall. They don't generally have an overall rating here, which I think they should, unless I go to next gen stats. Let me see what the next gen stats say.
That's what I mean. That's the whole thing with this stuff. Is I forget who I was talking to, but I was who was it? I can't remember. But I was talking to somebody about fantasy and how. I mean, he was basically asking, how do you translate real life scoring and points to fantasy? And I was, having that discussion of, just be, the best players may not be the best fantasy players and la-di-das. You really have to be kind of a stat nerd to be good at fantasy football. You can't just be a general football fan. Then you're just going to, I'm a Niner fan, I'm a Giant fan, I'm a whatever. You're just going to pick the names that you know. That doesn't translate to good fantasy. That translates to I picked my homer teams and I'm last in my league. That's what that ends up being. But you have to.
I got a friend of mine.
Is what it is.
I got a friend of mine who's a big Raider fan, and that's basically what he did. Was he just drafted a bunch of Raiders one year, and I was like, great, but you got week 8 is your bye week, and your entire team is going to be on a bye. So then what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And it got to the point where this is when Janikowski was still playing with the Raiders. This is how long ago it was. But so it got down to the point where I needed to get a kicker, so I drafted Janikowski just to piss him off. He was like, "Well, no, I can't draft my Raider." I was like, "Well, Janikowski, he's a better than average kicker, but fucking hey, you're getting points with somebody else anyway." Yeah. So I don't. So like I said, I think Minnesota is the only real potential upset that could possibly happen, but I don't see it happening either. I think your picks are probably pretty spot on. I can't argue any of them.
Like I said, I think Minnesota will do well. I think with the weapons that Minnesota has, you're not going to keep them out of the end zone. Even if they don't win the game, they're still going to be somewhat, respectable. But I think Kansas City comes out and proves something. So we'll find out next week. I wrote down who I thought will win in the scores, so I can keep track myself. I want to see see if I need to get a job at Fox Sports or something. See if I can replace Terry Bradshaw. You know what I mean? We'll find out.
Nobody can replace Bradshaw. He's a kook. I like what Cora said about Gary Busey, how he's just so extra. I think he's the Gary Busey of football coverage. He's just all over the place.
I just want to work with Jimmy Johnson. I mean, Jimmy Johnson is my favorite football coach, 90s Cowboys kid. I mean, come on. I just want to hang out with Jimmy Johnson. If I can do that, I'll be happy.
I would like to hang out and talk football with Jimmy Johnson. I think that'd be a fun day.
Oh, yeah.
Kick back a few
I just want to touch his hair. I want to see how does it feel like a helmet. I've always wanted to do that, but it is what it is.
I think it's real. Yeah. I think it's real. I think he goes in the dressing room,
think it's real.
Like, takes it off and sits it on like one of those fake heads, like I got sitting like right back there.
Do you think he kind of like Darth Vader whenever like it comes off and puts it back on kind of thing or whatever?
He's like Charlie Brown. He's got the two hairs that come over like this, or Homer Simpson. He's just got the two hairs that come over like this.
I just want to hang out with Jimmy Johnson. That's all I really want to do. It is what it is. It's all good.
But here comes the fun part of the show. This is when we start talking shit to one another. You got to admit,
let me get my Homer jacket on.
Yeah, so far this is probably the most interesting game that we've had in the NFL so far this year. Here we are, Week 5. This is the first big one. I haven't looked at the entire schedule for this week, but this is the one that has a lot of people talking. My Niners will be hosting Texas Dallas Cowboys.
Go Cowboys.
Let the shit talk begin. I mean, first off, let's try to approach this as objectively as we can. I mean,
right.
Both defenses are very good.
Yeah.
I think the Niners is better, but they're both good. So ultimately, I think that's going to be kind of a wash on paper. Offensively, I think the Niners have an edge right now. They have a lot of weapons. I've said that already. But I think your guys' number one cornerback, I think, is going to be out, right?
Yeah, he's out for the year.
And you've still got Parsons, which is a problem. And I'm not entirely confident with the 49ers offensive line right now. There are some concerns that I have, if I'm being perfectly honest. So I think he could be a problem in the pass rush. I don't want to see Purdy get his ass beat today, this week, because I do still worry about him.
Mika's hungry.
He's hungry.
Mika needs to be fed. He's hungry. So.
Right now, I give the Niners an edge. Not a big one. I would like to say that I think the Niners are going to win this by a couple of touchdowns, but I do have a feeling this game's going to be a lot closer than I want it to be. I mean, I know that you're picking Dallas, but I mean, do you agree with me that this is not going to be a runaway win for either team?
I think this is going to be an old school ugly football game. No, I don't think anybody's going to run away with this. I think this is going to be old school smash mouth football what was was it 19-12 in the playoffs this past season when Dallas played San Francisco?
Yeah,
wasn't that what it was? I think it's what it was. And I mean, that game came down to turnovers. And to me, I think this game's decided by a field goal. I've got Dallas by 3. I've got 31-28 Dallas. I think this is going to be a little more offense than last time. But the thing that I think gives Dallas the edge here is the special teams. I was listening to Undisputed this morning, Skip Bayless and Keyshawn and all them. And I think Skip Bayless is right with Dallas gets turnovers, and they're not giving them up this season. Dallas, I think, since 2020 has more interceptions than anybody in the league. They're getting points on special teams. They're getting points off of interceptions. Dak's not turning the ball over this year with this new Texas Coast style offense that McCarthy has named it. It's just it's his version of a West Coast offense.
I like that.
Dak's I do too. It's pretty cool. It's a little bit more of a convoluted West Coast offense, basically, is what it is. Dak's not turning the ball over. You're seeing more tight end play. You're not seeing as big deep threat. I mean, CD Lamb, I think he's only had one touchdown all year, which sucks because I drafted him on a couple teams as well. But the Cowboys aren't giving up the major stuff, so this is not going to be an easy football game. Credit where it's due. You've got Al Bundy running the football on the other side of the freaking ball field over here that Parsons is going to have to deal with. So when Dallas is blitzing, all Purdy has to do is check it down to McCaffrey, and he takes off like a rocket ship. That's what worries me more than anything. I'm not worried about the receivers. Even with our number one defensive back out, we've got some ball hawks back there. The one thing I am counting on is if Micah Parsons gets to Brock Purdy early, and get in that positive on the turnovers, that's going to decide the game. Because I think both teams are more even than a lot of people think. So we'll see.
You said, what do you think the final score is going to be?
I got 31-28 Dallas. It's going to be off of a Brandon Aubrey field goal at the end of the game. I think it's going to be close.
I don't know if the score is going to be quite that high. Because I think both defenses are good. I've got San Francisco 28-24. I don't want to here's one of my concerns with the Niners right now is I don't think they've been getting the kind of pressure on the quarterback that you would expect them to get from that kind of a defensive front. And then you have guys like Bosa at the end. You've got guys like Warner on the blitz, the linebackers. I don't think they've been getting the kind of pressure that they should have been getting the last couple of weeks. And I don't know. I don't know what their offensive line is ranked at right now, but Dallas has got a long history of having a top 5 or top 8 offensive line almost every year. So you're not playing an offensive. Yeah. I don't know what they are this year. I haven't looked, but I mean, so you're going up against a good offensive line. You're not getting the kind of pressure that I would like you to get. Not that they're not getting good pressure, but I was expecting more. So that concerns me a little bit. And so what's going to have to happen is because you've got CeeDee Lamb, that's great. You've got Pollard, which is great. There's good players. If you could shut one of them down, then all you have is the one outlet for Dak, and I think that helps a lot. But they're not getting pressure. I don't know if they're going to get pressure on Dak the way that I want them to get pressure. So if you're going to give Dak a lot of time, he may not be able to hit Lamb, but he may be able to hit Gallup. Gallup's going to play, right? I think he was on. I think he was on the injured.
Gallup's actually bumped up to the second wide receiver, actually.
Yeah. So I mean,
Brandon Cooks has not been doing good. So no.
Yeah. So I mean, you've got Gallup. So if you're not getting pressure, you're going to give Dak an opportunity to go through his progressions. That's where you run into a little bit of a problem. I like the Niners defensive backs. I think they cover well, but the problem is Dak's good enough, and I know this. I've watched him. That if you give him a chance to go through his progressions, it's going to be CeeDee Lamb, maybe Gallup, maybe Cook if
Ferguson.
Or Ferguson also. You know, I've talked about how much I like him the last couple of weeks. Or maybe check down to Ferguson or Pollard. You're going to give them a lot. You're going to give him a lot of opportunities to go through his progressions, and it's gonna put a lot of pressure on the defense. So you have to get pressure up the middle if you're the Niners, and I haven't quite seen it this year. It's a concern. That said, if they manage to find a crack in that offensive line and Bosa exploits it or Warner starts to exploit it, and they're getting quick pressure and not giving Dak a chance to do anything but check down, or maybe even get a couple of sacks. The Niners haven't gotten a great deal of sacks this year either, which is kind of weird. I mean, Bosa's got his first one, I think, like last week. So, now, granted, it took him a game or two to kind of get up to speed since he missed that time in the preseason for the whole contract thing. But, yeah, Bosa just got his first sack. I mean, like I said, they haven't been getting that kind of pressure. That's a concern for me. With your guys' number one cornerback being out, I think that works out good for the Niners. But I don't think that they stretch the field. I don't think it would have been as big a deal because they don't stretch the field the way that a lot of teams do. A lot of it is check, that short pass to Diva, that short pass to Ayuk, Kittle over the middle on a slant, throw it out here to McCaffrey or Wilson or one of these guys or one of the other guys, and because that's where the Niners do it is the yards after the catch. So I think if the Niners stick to their game, I think 28-24 is probably where it's going to be. But I don't think it's going to be a roll for either team. I think it's going to be close down to the end. I think Dak's motivated, which frightens me a bit because Dak does play up to a lot of teams. I like that about Dak. And this is and the Niners have been his bugaboo the last couple of years, especially in the playoffs. So he's motivated. Yeah. I also I like what Parsons said. He was a lot of times, you go into these games, guys are going to be like, oh yeah, these teams ain't shit, blah blah blah. We're gonna beat them. And you got the scoreboard stuff, and Parsons took a very politically correct, very wise approach when he was saying, yeah, Purdy's the real deal. We know. We're just gonna see him on Sunday. We're doing what we got to do. And I was like, that's smart stuff. No billboard material. None of that bullshit about whatever, blah blah, Mr. Irrelevant talking shit. Just like let's just go out.
Mr. Irrelevant, yeah.
Yeah, let's go out of the field. Let's go out of the field and do this. That's what I think. That's what I think it's exactly what I think he should have said.
Do you listen to his podcast that he does?
No.
You should listen to his podcast. He's got a little bit of Deion in him. Deion Sanders, he kind of has a primetime bit of attitude to him, which I want in a football player. I want them to have some kind of an ego, but he works hard and he's humble. Micah Parsons, he spent the entire offseason not only training football, doing like jiu-jitsu and different kinds of MMA combat, hand kinds of things. That's why he is so destructive on that line. And I love, I don't buy very many modern player jerseys. If I were to buy any modern Cowboy, Micah Parsons is the one that I would buy because that dude's a monster behind the line. One thing I will say, you were talking about the Cowboys' offensive line. The Cowboys do have a monster offensive line. The problem is 3 of our 5 starters are hurt. Zach Martin, Tyron Smith, and I forget who the third one is. We're getting 2 of them back. I don't think Tyron Smith is going to play last I heard unless something has changed. But Zach Martin has been dealing with an ankle injury for a few weeks now. And the one thing that worries me about getting with the offensive line, because, credit where it's due, whether you want to say San Francisco or Dallas has the top defense, they're both the best too. There's no argument there. So if the 49ers can get penetration on that offensive line and get Dak flustered, that's when the turnovers could come down. But the way that they've implemented Tony Pollard and Deuce in the backfield and a couple other guys, maybe that's kind of a push, I'm hoping, because, there's a reason why this is a Sunday night game. This is the big one. This is the one everybody's been looking for. Even if you're not a Niners or Cowboy fan, you're going to be watching this game. So this is the one thing I like about this is Dallas is hungry. They're coming at this like the 49ers owe them something, and they're hot. They're hungry. They want it. We saw any given Sunday, right? The Arizona Cardinals shouldn't have even been in the stadium, and they beat the Dallas Cowboys. Maybe Dallas can go in to Niners' house and take one. It'll be an ugly win, but I think they can do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
we'll see.
Pro Football Network has them ranked at number 4. They've got Philly number 1, Cleveland number 2, Detroit number 3, and Dallas number 4. And they've got the Niners way down here, which is probably where they belong.
See, I looked on a different website, and they had Niners 1, Cowboys 2. I don't remember which site it was. That's weird. I don't use that website that you're going off of. I don't know who does that site. But, do we know what the over-under is? Crazy Blade asked. I do not know.
I'll look it up here in a second. But, it says pretty much what I think. It said Christian McCaffrey won the FedEx Ground Player of the Week in each of the first 2 weeks, but pass protecting unit has been a problem. Absolutely. That's a concern. Now, what it said, I think it's also pretty fair about Dallas. It says, despite facing 2 outrageous New York defensive fronts, the Dallas Cowboys offensive line has played splendidly with Tyron Smith returning to action soon. This unit could be devastating if fully healthy for a good stretch of the season. Yeah. So, yeah, I agree with both. I agree with both those.
Oh, yeah. How can you not? The talent's there. They just got to keep them healthy. And, it was when they lost Tyreek Diggs, he was our defensive back that went out. We just gave him a new contract, and he went out for the year with the ACL gone out. We really miss him, but you know what? Next man up. You do what you got to do. And, so far the Dallas defense has showed. You can argue, and like I said, this is me being objective. Dallas hasn't played the toughest teams, but they beat, besides Arizona, they beat the teams they should have beat. You can't ask any more of that. But you always have to take into account Dallas steps up. You even said it a few minutes ago. Dallas steps up in these big games. Go back and watch that playoff game from last year. That if Tony, I still argue, and I'll argue it till I'm dead. If Tony Pollard had not gotten hurt in that game, Dallas would have won that thing. I'll never think anything otherwise. But Tony Pollard's on a roll. If Dallas can get, like I said, my biggest worry for Dallas is turnovers in red zone. The Cowboys are awful in the red zone this year. They have not scored a red zone touchdown. If they got to get those when they drive down the field, get 7, not 3. So they got to get these touchdowns because, like I said, credit where it's due. You've got McCaffrey over there running, up and down on everybody. You can't take them lightly. You know what I mean?
I was trying to find the point spreads and all that.
I haven't even looked at the point spread for this game.
Let me go back to the one I was looking. This is today. It's from CBS Sports. Let's see, for week 5, what's it got? It's got the Niners are giving 3.5, and it's a 45-point over-under.
I could see that. That makes sense.
I'm taking the slightly over, which is funny when you consider you got two really good defenses going after one another. But I feel like if it's going to be a close one, it's going to be a higher scoring close one. It's not going to be another 19-12 game. You know what I mean?
Just because defenses are going to take over, that doesn't mean it's not going to be high scoring. I could easily see some pick sixes coming in this game, especially from the Dallas side. I don't know the San Francisco backs as well as you do, but I got a feeling that San Francisco's got some old boys that can pick it off and run it back. You know what I mean? So I think their best.
I think their best pass coverage, oddly enough, I think they're better in the linebacker spot. I think the Niners can be a little vulnerable in the deep ball sometimes. Either the receiver catching it or there've been a lot of some of them have been kind of ticky-tack, I think, but some of them have been legit. There's been a lot of pass interference calls against the Niners that I've seen this year. So, and I don't know if it's just that a couple of those guys are kind of young, but yeah, I would not throw a slant against the Niners linebackers. I mean, those guys just have a way of just jumping in front of the ball and at least knocking it down, or sometimes getting the interception, or tipping it, or doing something to cause chaos. Yeah, those deep linebackers can be really problematic. I think if Dak is going to have a big game, like 350 yards and 2 or 3 touchdowns, it's going to be because he's going deep. I think that's where the Niners are more vulnerable. The short passing game with the linebackers and stuff, and even the defensive backs, I think defend the shorter passes a lot better. But the deep balls have been a little iffy. So I feel like that's a place where Dak could probably pick them apart.
This is where I think Ferguson, the tight end, has his best game. Kind of like you said a couple weeks ago. I think you're going to see a lot of check downs, a lot of 5 to 10 routes from Ferguson to Gallup to whoever. I can see CD getting double covered and Gallup having a big game. Brandon Cooks, the Dallas number 2, he's one of the guys that I actually dropped this week because he's just not performing. He's lost his job to Gallup and everything else. I can see CD getting double covered. I don't know if if San Francisco does more man or what kind of defensive packages y'all run. But I can see Ferguson and Gallup having pretty big days, and Tony Pollard having a big day as well. I could really see that too.
I think Ferguson, if they do what the Niners try to do sometimes with Kittle, the deep over the middle stuff. If they do the deep over the middle stuff, I think that could be problematic for the Niners. But like I said, those little that short stuff, I mean, throwing it out in the flat, throwing those wheel routes to Pollard, I think will probably get them some good yardage. But yeah, I think that the Niners can very easily get kittled this week if they're not careful. Like I said, I think the deep ball is going to be something that I'm going to worry about as I'm watching this game, because I think the Niners can be a little susceptible to that. If for nothing else, and just drawing flags, that's kind of a problem. That's a worry for me. But Tex has Dallas winning 31-28 in the last-second field goal. I've got the Niners winning 28-24. I don't see it being quite as high scoring as Tex does, but I think the defense is going to keep it from getting a little too outrageous. But yeah, it's certainly going to be a great game. Now let's get into the shit talking part. Let's get into the shit talking part where we're both homers. The Niners have so many weapons. It's like you got your main defensive back out. I mean, they're there's only so much you can cover. I mean, like I said, you can cover one guy, you can cover two guys, you might even be able to cover three guys, but there's still you can limit Kittle, you can limit Ayuk, you could limit Debo, and then you've still got McCaffrey you have to worry about. There's just so much there that I feel like the Niners can overcome just about any defense. And score good points. Like I said, I worry about our defense a little bit, the lack of pressure. But I mean, dude, the run after catch yardage that we get is just ridiculous. I don't see the Cowboys dealing with that as easily as some people think they will.
Go ahead and get on the horn with your 49er buddies in the office there. I know you have direct access to them, being a fan and all. And go ahead and tell them to season Brock Purdy with some spicier stuff, because that's how Micah Parsons likes his lunch. He likes a bite to his food, you know what I mean? And if all else fails, go ahead and call a priest, because there's going to be an exorcism needed, because Micah Parsons is going to haunt him all day long until he buries him in the ground. Kittle, McCaffrey, Debo, whatever. If your quarterback's in the dirt, none of those guys matter. So you take the number one guy out. Everybody else is going to fall. So, Mr. Irrelevant might be Mr. Dead by the time we get there Sunday night, because Micah's coming and he's hungry.
But that's why they got Darnold. He could be another not Alex Smith. He could be another Garoppolo, where he's just like, hey, all you got to do is not fuck it up. Just complete the ball, complete the pass to Debo and let him cook. Complete the pass to Ayuk and let him cook. Hand the ball off to McCaffrey and let him cook. You don't have to go out there and throw and be Joe Montana to win us the game. All you got to do is go out there and not throw an interception, and we're going to do the rest.
It's going to be really sweet watching Dak Prescott just sling balls over that field like it's an air raid. I want to see CD go right down the middle of y'all's defense, be double covered, catch a pass and run to that end zone and just leave y'all in the dust. That's going to be so sweet to avenge that little oopsie of a playoff game we had last season. You know what? That was a fluke. That wasn't
last 2 seasons. Last 2 seasons, you guys ended on some really stupid
we don't talk about 2 years ago. We're going with relevance here. So, like I said, it's going to be fun. Dallas is hungry. The one thing that you can't measure is the will to win, and Dallas has it. Dallas is pissed off because they were embarrassed by Arizona. The last 2 years, even as you just said, y'all took us out of the playoffs. We're coming for blood, and we want nothing less. So you better tell your boys to get ready, because we coming, and we coming hard. So,
well, your boy. I heard your boy on PTI the other day saying what did he say? Troy Aikman said, the funny thing about football, he said, you're always 1 week away from humility. So it's like, I worry about that as a Niner fan, but at the same time, I'm like, hey, Cowboys, you haven't really played anybody yet. Now you're playing somebody. You're going to get your test. Maybe you win, maybe you don't.
We already got
playing the Giants. You're not playing the Jets with fucking Zach Wilson. You're not playing the Arizona Cardinals, who are by far the worst team in that division. It's like you're playing a team that is a legitimate contender, and some people think is one of the top, maybe the top team in the NFC, maybe one of the top teams in the NFL. Now you're playing somebody. You better bring your fucking A game. You've had 4 weeks to practice. Now you're playing the big boys, and you're playing them in Santa Clara.
I'm glad we're playing y'all at y'all's home, so whenever we beat y'all so bad, you don't have far to drive home and cry to your, life partners out there or whatever y'all do in California.
Well, that's the nice thing about California. We have like coloring books and support animals now, so if we lose, they'll be okay.
Do they have safe spaces in the locker room? Is that how that works? Did they add that to the field?
I don't know.
But,
probably. They have,
like I said, it's Dallas is coming with something to prove. Like I said, completely unbiased. If you look at numbers and everything else, I'll give it to you. If you were to stack name for name, Niners would win. But the one thing that you can't stack and measure is the want to and the pissed offness that Dallas is working with right now. And revenge is best served cold, buddy. We got 2 years of revenge built up, and I think that Piper's about to be calling. So you best tell your boys to pack a lunch because they're going to be working Sunday night. They're going to be sore by the time Dallas gets done stomping on them. So
I have to admit, I am a little concerned that the Niners are only favored by 3.5 at home because you get the 3 points for being the home team, and then only adding another half point onto that. I mean, look, these two teams are pretty evenly matched right now, let's be honest. But and the over-under only being at 45, I guess that sounds about right because they're two good defenses. But seriously, Niners at home in that environment, there's too many weapons. Your defensive back is hurt. I mean, we talk about your offensive line. When healthy, they're definitely one of the best in the league. I don't know how healthy they're going to be come Sunday. That's going to help the Niners get better pressure. Hopefully,
that's my biggest worry is offensive line.
So I feel like if Bosa and Warner are putting all kinds of pressure on the middle part of that offensive line, they're not going to be able to block for Pollard up the middle. He's going to have to swing out, which is going to run him into guys. You got Warner that can get out there. You got Bosa that can get out there. You've got Greenlaw that can get out there. I mean, I think they can run parallel with any of the running backs that Dallas has. I'm confident. I am supremely confident that if there's going to be a blowout in this game, it's going to be the Niners on the right end. I'm pretty confident. But I've got my safe space right out there in my garage in case I need it. It's got like a fluffy chair for me to sit in and soft music just in case.
Well, I guess my safe space is at the bottom of a bottle of whiskey, but I guess we handle things a little bit different.
I got that too. I got that too.
But like I said, I'll say this: I'm looking at this game like this is a divisional rival. All these stats and numbers and blah blah blah. You and I have both been fans of of each respective team our entire lives. We know the history, the lineage, and how bad these franchises hate each other. You can throw all of that out the window. These two teams have been rivals for decades, and that's never going to change, I don't think. And this is just the next chapter in that book. And, like I said, to the victor go the spoils. The last 2 times, y'all have beaten us. But I got faith. It's not going to be 40-0 like we put on New York, but it's going to be enough. Whether it's 1 or 100, it still counts as a victory, and that's all I need, buddy. So
we got to win by 1.
We're winning.
We got to win by 1.
1. I only need 1. I don't need 40. Just give me 1. You know what I mean? It's all good.
Yeah, it's gonna. I really wish that this weekend was a little kinder with my time because I would love to go live with this game just to watch it Sunday night. But I just
that'd be great. Oh yeah, that'd be great.
This weekend I got a friend getting married, and then Sunday is my only free day to kind of arrange some things that I want to do next week. I guess I could tell you guys like this week, the Niners are at home against Dallas, and next week they're going to be at Cleveland. And I'm having a feeling that me, my son, and a friend of mine are actually going to go up to that game to watch the Niners play in Cleveland. So you might get some little bit of vlog action from me on Sunday or maybe Monday, depending on when I can get a video up. But,
that'll be cool.
Yeah, so you might you might see some on-site action from the city by the lake when the Niners go up there and wreak hell on fucking what's his name up there. Fucking weird guy that used to be in Houston. I don't even know his name anymore. I don't care about him. but before we get to Cleveland, before we whoop that dog's ass, we got to handle those Cowgirls, damn it. We got to handle them.
These Cowboys are going to,
Where's my Niners? There it is.
I hope the Niners have a real good doctor on hand because they're going to have to permanently remove that shoe that Micah Parsons puts up Brock Purdy's ass. You know that, right? They're going to need on-site surgeons to take that out because I'm telling you what.
We'll be all right. We're all right.
You might need that flag to cry in whenever them Cowboys are stomping on that little logo in the middle of y'all's field because that star is number 1, baby. This right here is the epitome of football team right here. America's team. We're still that no matter what. So go Cowboys. That's all I'm saying.
You were like 100 years ago when Landry was still roaming the sidelines. Landry's been dead for 40 years.
Hey, you know what? The spirit of Tom Landry is going to, this is actually kind of fitting because we're actually reviewing Exorcist tomorrow. The spirit of Tom Landry is going to possess Mike McCarthy on Sunday. And Mike McCarthy is going to seem very different on the side of the field. His stern look of expression, the way he plays or he calls plays and does everything. It's going to be so Landry like you've never seen it. So, I'm not going to say that famous phrase about Dallas. I'm saving that for after we beat y'all on Sunday night. So it is what it is. I'm not going to do it prematurely. What's that?
You don't want to tempt fate.
No, like I said, I'm not tempting fate. I'm not throwing it out there early. But just get ready. After we beat y'all Sunday night, Wednesday night, I'm starting with that famous, most glorious phrase that I'll be saying on my deathbed. And go Cowboys. That's all I'm saying. We're taking it home, baby.
One of us is rolling here Wednesday wearing all black. We're gonna have like bagpipes playing a sad song in the background.
This right here is my favorite thing about football. It's not the game itself. It's whenever you have friends of a rival team that are both threats to one another, and you can just go back and forth. This is my favorite part about football right here. I love this. So it's a lot of fun.
It's also the great thing about the differences between my friends. Like I was saying, me and my buddy Frank Giovanella, we just look at each other and go, mm-hmm. We don't have to say anything. We just shoot the look. We're like, okay, we understand what you're saying. Yeah. And then there's me and you. It's like, no, we got to talk shit. We got to be like, yeah, we whooped your team's ass, bro.
Well, we're trying to entertain people here. This is
That's true.
This is an if we were in person, it would be a little bit different. But we're putting on a show here. This is our, we're not, Skip and Shannon. We're Tex and Frank. We're doing our own thing. You know what I mean? So it is what it is. But like I said, all I can wish y'all is good luck because you're going to need it because my boys are coming in there to just take everything and leave. I mean, we're going to leave that stadium in an ash pile by the time we get done. So, let's go Cowboys. So,
well, let me ask you this from a more objective kind of angle. What would be the bigger NFL story?
Right.
Cowboys beating Niners or Niners beating Cowboys? Because I think both those stories would be approached differently.
Oh.
By the media.
Objectively,
those stories would be approached differently.
I think it has to be Cowboys beating Niners because we just got our butt whooped by Arizona 2 weeks ago. San Francisco's still undefeated. You know what I'm saying? I think, obviously this is going to catch the most attention, but I think the most shocking news report would be Dallas beats 49ers in San Francisco.
I agree. I think that would be the bigger story because it feels like Dallas is going into this game and they're being looked at as kind of underachievers, even though they're 3-1. They've got. I think they should be 4-0. I kind of expected both teams to be 4-0 coming into this game, but I still think that loss to Arizona was kind of a fluke. I don't really think that exposes them at all. But I do think that even if they were both 4-0 coming into this game, that there would be this weird aura. They expect the Niners to win. They don't know what the Cowboys are going to do. And I think if the Niners win, it's going to be like, we expected the Niners to win. On paper, they're better. Matchup, whatever. You can do all the analytical stuff and say they're better. But if Dallas wins, then it's going to be like, we didn't expect Dallas to win, or the expectations were much lower for Dallas. So it's a bigger story for the NFL if Dallas wins. If J-Man were here, he would say the NFL's rigged. It's scripted that Dallas is going to win because blah, 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 because he wants to be a 49er apologist. But, if I'm just being totally honest about it, I think that would be the bigger story for the NFL. That would be a bigger story for the media, would be Dallas winning. I think there's an expectation the Niners are going to win by a lot of people. So maybe it's not going to be a big deal.
Like I said earlier in the show, even Jerry Jones is coming out on his radio show and saying he thinks the 49ers are the best team to win the Super Bowl this year. And obviously he's just doing that as, press-wise, he's trying to look like a good owner and a, good sport, whatever. But I think truly deep down he actually believes that because, let's just face the facts. The Niners have won the last 2 meaningful games in the playoffs against us. Y'all have kept us out from where we wanted to be with this long-standing rivalry. This is why y'all are expected to win. You even listed it yourself. All the offensive weapons, the tremendous defense. These things can't be ignored. But at a certain point, you kind of throw all that out the window when you just go play the game and you see who comes out on top. Like I said, let's not forget these 2 teams. It was 19-12. This game could have easily went the other way, and fate would have been possibly completely different. But it is what it is. We'll see Sunday night on NBC. So I'm looking forward to it. I want this to be a competitive game, and I want it to be a fun game. I want it to be a back and forth barn burner of the event.
Which team do you think is hurt most by the loss? Like, do you think it would be? I mean, if the Niners lose, I mean, like I said, I feel like it would be a bigger story. But I mean, if the Niners lose, I feel like it's just going to be like, well, they lost to a good team, but there's still a lot of football to be played, and they're clearly kind of the class of the division right now. Clearly, it's a regular season game, not the playoffs, so it doesn't have the same look. But I mean, if Dallas loses, do you think that it impacts them a lot more than it would impact the Niners if they lost?
I think the impact would be harder on Dallas just based off of this year's – there's a lot on the line this year, especially for Mike McCarthy, our head coach. If he doesn't get to the NFC Championship game, I don't think he's here next year. I think Dan Quinn, our defensive coordinator, possibly takes his job. They need this win. This is the game that Dallas has been looking at for 5 weeks. They overlooked the Arizona Cardinals and got beaten because they were looking at this game. If the Niners were to lose this, I think they could shrug it off and keep going. But if Dallas loses this game, that could be very detrimental to their season because they've been looking at it for so long. Mika's been talking about it for weeks. The team has been talking on social medias and la-di-das and whatever. The Cowboys want this one. They want to avenge that playoff loss last year. They want to get their win back. And I think Dallas needs this more than the Niners do. Not just record-wise, but team-wise. You know what I mean?
Trying to...
What's up, TSS?
So his regular season record against the Niners is 2-0.
Who?
Dak. That's what it's telling me here.
That's
his regular season.
Right.
I don't like this. Maybe I'll go to Pro Football Focus for this one.
How would you rank? Like, give me your top 4 NFC teams. Like, who would you put there?
The fourth one's the hard one. I would go Niners, Philly, Dallas. The fourth one is...
I'll put Detroit there at number 4.
You know what? I like Detroit, but I don't know. I don't know. Well, I don't know if I want to put them in the top 5 right now.
Prior to the season, my number 4 was Minnesota, but I can't put Minnesota as the 4th best team when they've only won 1 game all year. And Detroit is, doing well. Like I said, credit where it's due. I've got Niners as in 1 as well, Philly, then Dallas. Even though I think Dallas is better than Philadelphia, Eagles being 4-0, they have to be put over them, unfortunately. It is what it is. But I think this game's going to dictate a lot going forward this season. If Dallas can get this win, that loss in Arizona doesn't matter anymore. If Dallas can go into the San Francisco 49ers home turf and beat them even by 3, the spread is 3.5, so it's basically right there. If Dallas can go in and get this win, the trajectory of their entire season changes. That makes those battles with the Eagles mean different. And let's not forget, The Eagles had to go into overtime to beat the freaking Washington Redskin football team, Commanders, whatever they are this week. They had to go to overtime to beat that bad of a team. So the Eagles aren't that good either. Just keep that in perspective. So Dallas needs this win. I want them to go in there and I want them to beat them, because if they beat them, everybody else is very easily took. That's just what I'm looking at.
Okay, so against the Niners, I found his split on Pro Football Reference. So against the Niners, he's 2-2 with an average of 39, of 68% completion percentage, 400. I don't know if these are averages. This must be total. Although I don't know if this is right or not. 39 of 57 for 18 incompletions, a 68.42% completion percentage, 479 yards, 5 touchdowns. I don't know if this is right because it says no interceptions. If it's counting the playoff games, I know he's got at least one because he threw 2 last year.
Dak threw 2 interceptions in the playoff game last year.
Yeah, I'm trying.
1 or 2.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know about that. So I don't know if these stats are right or not.
I'm not sure. Like I said, I picked high for this game because I think we had the low scoring affair in the playoffs this last season. I think, like I said, I'm not saying these offenses are going to go for a blast. I think we could see some, kickoffs ran back, some punts ran back. The Dallas special team is really, really good this year. Not just that, but our defense are ball hawks, man. If Brock Purdy is not on his game, he's going to get some passes turned back on him for some pick sixes. And it's like I said, just like Skip Bayless said today, turnovers. Whoever wins it. I mean, we all know whoever wins the turnover battle wins the game 9 out of 10 times. But with a game that's this close with teams that are this good, they're both going to be up for one another. And I think who's got the least amount of mistakes, aka turnovers, is probably going to win this. And with 38-21 Dallas, I think that's the way that it goes. But we'll see. I think it's going to be a fun game. Well, I know it's going to be a fun game, but I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a good one to watch.
I did think it was kind of funny that Dak got kind of pissed off when somebody asked him about the Niner game. I thought it was well. You know what? Here's what I find interesting is like his reaction. It's because this is why I think that the Dallas Cowboys have more to lose Sunday than the Niners do. Is just looking at the quarterbacks. I mean, Brock Purdy knows that there was no way he was even supposed to be here, so he's just along for the ride. He's even if he loses the game, it's not really going to matter to him that much. But Dak, it's like that's the kind of thing that's going to get in Dak's head. So if they lose, so if Dallas loses this game, that's the kind of thing that's going to bother Dak for the next couple of weeks, and that's when you can see Dallas go on a bit of a slide. Let me look at the upcoming schedule real quick. Let's see. 2003 next game, 2003 Cowboys schedule. So let's say they lose this game against the Niners. They've got the Chargers, who they should probably beat. They got the Rams, who I think they would beat. Then they got the Eagles. The Eagles are going to be a tough game for them.
I think they'll split with the Eagles. They normally do. I think they'll split with them.
But then down the stretch, they've got Buffalo, which could be I don't know. Buffalo's getting hot, and then they got Miami.
I think Buffalo.
Detroit.
I think Buffalo beats them. So I think they beat Detroit.
So if they lose, so if Dallas loses this game, especially if they lose badly, if they get kind of beat up a little bit, which I don't think is going to happen. But if they do get beat up a little bit in this game, that's the kind of thing that's going to get in Dak's head, and it's going to last for a couple of weeks. So you may end up coughing up one of these games against the Chargers or the Rams, and then you have to go into Philly. So you could find yourself losing 2 out of 3 games, or maybe even 3 out of 4 if you count if you lose the game against the Niners. And that could be a bad slide for them because, I mean, not only are they trying to – I mean, because they have maybe the best team in the NFC in their division. So if you get 2 or 3 games behind Philly now, you may not catch it back up.
I still think Philly's a bit overrated. Like I said, the Eagles have to go into overtime
too. I think they're a little overrated too, but, that's just me.
I don't even think Jalen Hurts –
You have to admit they're still good.
I don't think Jalen Hurts is as good as Dak Prescott is, and I know I'm in the minority in saying that. I just don't think he is, and I think Dallas and Philadelphia will split like they normally do. But I think like I said, depending on how this game goes, will dictate the rest of the season. Out of all those games that you mentioned, I think Dallas beats Detroit. Detroit. Like I said, until they win something legitimately, a division, a conference, Detroit has to win something to prove anything to me. I don't buy hype. I buy realism. Show me a divisional win. Show me something. We've got them on, I think it's, let's see, New Year's Eve, I think is when we played Detroit. Something like that. Dallas is a good team. Dallas is talented. They've got good leadership.
30th.
McCarthy.
The day before New Year's Eve, December 30th.
Yeah, right before New Year's Eve. Sorry. I know it was right around there. I couldn't remember exactly when. This will be – I do think you're right. I think this game dictates how the rest of the season goes. And if Dallas can walk in there and squeak out a win because they're not going to blow them out, it's not going to be 40-0 like we did on New York. This can make a lot happen. I still think we probably lose to Buffalo, and depending on which version of Miami shows up, that game could go either way. But, it is what it is, but we'll see.
It's going to be an interesting Sunday, to be sure.
We do have a question in the comments.
I know I wanted to get to it. Crazy Blade left, but TSS did pop in. He says, I think in no order, Philly, 49ers, Cowboys, and Lions. I don't know if I want to put the Lions up there in the top 5 just yet. I want to see them actually be real for a year, but they probably have control of that division right now. Unless Green Bay really puts it together. But I think the Lions are probably the class of division right now. Because after looking around, the only other good teams are the Seahawks and the Bucks. I'm not even sure the Bucks are all that good. Seahawks, they still scare me a bit. It's like Pete Carroll just won't go away.
Seahawks and Geno Smith have something there. I think there's still talent there, but I mean, call me crazy, but I haven't given up on Minnesota. I can see them coming back and getting the North. I really can. Like I said, I may be crazy, but I haven't given up on the Vikings yet, and I have no stake in them whatsoever. I mean, I know everybody in that division is basically giving it to Detroit. Green Bay is going to have a bid for it, but I'm not counting out the Vikings yet. This thing, can still Detroit at any time. So, I'm not crowning them anything. They're going to have to earn that. So we'll see.
See, Big Red Belly 09 watching us over on Twitch says, looking for advice on Ridley. Should I keep or trade? I have Keenan, Nico, and D-Hop as my other wide receivers. 14-man league. I think I can get Hollywood Brown or Garrett Wilson. I don't like anybody with the Jets right now, to be perfectly honest, in their offense.
I don't either.
I actually think I have Garrett Wilson on the bench in one of my leagues. I think he's actually put up some decent wide receiver 2 points, but I just don't trust anybody other than the defense. I don't trust anybody with the Jets right now.
I'd rather have Ridley than either of those two, but that's just me. I mean, even though you're deep at wide receiver, huh?
Yeah, well, let's see. Keenan Allen, I think we talked about earlier, is dealing with the injury thing. He's got the hip, and let's face it, he's not getting any younger. He's getting a little long in the tooth.
Right.
Nico's good. D-Hop's good.
Yeah.
Hollywood Brown, I would, if you could get Hollywood Brown, I would get him. I don't trust Garrett Wilson. I don't trust anybody in the Jets right now. Unless they find a quarterback, unless they find somebody else that is at least a high percentage, a completion percentage guy. I just don't want anybody with the Jets right now on offense. Except they're running. I can't believe Hill's actually put up some decent points right now.
I can't believe they haven't reached out to Dallas, who's got Cooper Rush and Trey Lance just sitting there. I mean, Dallas is sitting on two good backup quarterbacks that can start for either of them.
Well, part of the problem with the Jets getting a quarterback is they've got Rodgers. I mean, what are you willing to give up for a guy who can fill in this year and help maybe get you to the playoffs? It's
right
because you know that. I mean, assuming that Rodgers doesn't want to come back and play next year, he doesn't retire. And also, there's that possibility that he could come back this year because he did that in whatever the hell procedure to try to come back in time for the playoffs to fix his Achilles in time for the playoffs. So, I mean, what are you really willing to give up to get a guy like? Because I don't think they're going to cut the Cowboys to come off Cooper Rush for terrible cheap. But
I don't think they would either. I mean, Cooper Rush won them 4 games last year. I mean, they beat Cincinnati when they weren't supposed to with Cooper Rush. But I mean, I think they would rather keep Cooper Rush and get rid of Lance. Now, you know Lance better than I do. Do you think he would fit in a Jet system the way that they play football?
Well, they've got Robert Saleh there, so yeah. I don't see the Cowboys trading Trey Lance anyway. I mean, they just got him. I think they traded him. I think they got him from the Niners because they want him to eventually be the guy that takes over for Dak. I honestly think that's why they did it. And they're probably in the right for it. But Cooper Rush, maybe. I don't know who else they would go after. Like I said, what are you willing to give up for a stopgap for somebody who's you're only really wanting to have around for 11 or 12 games? Because, pie in the sky, Aaron Rodgers' Achilles heals in time for the playoffs. You somehow, without him, get a record that gets you into the playoffs, which they won't. I mean, unless Zach Wilson goes on a tear and throws for, 4 or 5 games.
I don't even think Zach Wilson will be on the Jets next year. I really don't.
Oh, I don't think so either.
I think he's gone after this year. I think they get rid of him. But I'm sure he'll fall to some god-awful NFL team, but it is what it is. But I mean, I got rid of it. I had let's see, who's the Jets running back? Cook? Is it what's his name? I can't remember now.
Hill. Cook is Buffalo.
Hill, yeah. I had Hill, and I traded him off for somebody. I forget who I traded him for, but I dumped every Jet that I had. The only thing Jets I have on 2 of my teams is the defense. I mean, that Jets defense is awesome. But offense, no. I'd stay away on everything.
Oh, wait a minute. They have Dalvin Cook. They did get Dalvin Cook. They got him from Minnesota. Breece Hall is supposed to be coming back. So they probably got like a 2-headed running back thing going on. But still, I mean, I would trust them as like running back 2 guys or flex guys, but I wouldn't want anybody from the Jets offense right now, especially wide receivers.
I wouldn't either. The Jets in that division, I mean, you've got the AFC is stacked. I mean, and I'm not even talking Cincinnati, but you've got Buffalo that's killing it. Miami is just blowing up. You've got Baltimore that's hanging in there. You've got a lot of heavy hitters in that AFC, and I don't think the Jets win a game the rest of the season. I got to be honest with you. I don't see them beating anybody.
It's a good possibility.
I mean, obviously, I know they almost beat Kansas City, even though there were some obvious calls like that one where Patrick Mahomes ran for 20 yards at the end of the game, where there was a flagrant holding call that was all over Twitter. I don't know if you saw it or not, but that one, the refs obviously didn't see it. But I don't think the Jets win another game. I think they're just god awful right now. So I stay away.
If they're going to make a move for a quarterback and try to put together a decent season this year, they're going to have to do it in the next couple of weeks. If they don't do it in the next couple of weeks, then there's no point even trying. You may as well throw every game and hope that Aaron Rodgers comes back healthy and ready to go after basically a year off.
Well, from what I've seen, the Jets are basically running what the offense that the Packers had because of obviously Aaron Rodgers is in place there. But I just, that team was built around Aaron Rodgers, and he ain't coming back this year. So, they got to do something. But it is what it is, and I like Ridley as a player. I've got him. He starts for a couple of my teams. I think I'd hold on to him, even if I had some pretty good backups behind him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Big Red Belly. Appreciate it. We do mostly movies.
Yeah.
Hopefully you come back and check out our movie reviews as well. I think that's going to wrap it up for the night. We went a little bit longer than I was planning on, but hey, the good talk is the good talk, so I didn't want to ruin it. There's still plenty of stuff to talk about.
Good.
But we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. Thanks for checking us out, guys. We very much appreciate it. My man from down south, the shade from Lone Star State. What do you got going on, my friend?
Continuing my scare-a-thon. Like I said, if you watched last night, all films that I'm watching this month have to happen on Halloween. So my next two suggestions are Hellfest and Scream 6. One's a little bit newer than the other, but they're both fun movies to watch. And, come check them out. And you know what? Go ahead and watch The Exorcist because we're going to be talking about it tomorrow, aren't we, Frank? So, just go ahead and watch it. It's a great time for an exorcism, right? So check that out as well. So,
what better month for an exorcism than this month, the scary month, October? Perfect time for a movie like this. As for me, you will find me here. Like Tex said, you will find us all here. Well, it'll probably just be me and you. I don't think Jeremy's going to be here tomorrow. But I don't imagine Cora is going to want to sit on this one. But you will find us here tomorrow talking about The Exorcist from 1973. Certainly one of the best horror movies ever made. Some people think maybe one of the top 5 or 10 films ever made, period. We will be breaking it all down tomorrow in the lead up for this weekend's release of The Exorcist, the new sequel, The Exorcist. Why do I keep forgetting the subtitle?
Exorcist Believer.
The Exorcist, Believer. Well, I don't know why I keep forgetting that. I keep want to call it Resurrection for some reason. But The Exorcist Believer, we'll be breaking that one down. Yeah, we'll be breaking that one down on Tuesday, but tomorrow we're breaking down the OG Exorcist. Very, very fantastic movie. One of my all-time favorite movies. One of the great horror films of the genre. We're breaking that down tomorrow, so come check us out at 8 o'clock tomorrow night as we go into all of that. I still have to finish watching the movie. I'll be doing that tomorrow before we go live. But, looking forward to all of that. Looking forward to more football talk. One of us is coming in here real sad next Wednesday, Tex. One of us is going to come in hat in hand,
One of us is going to come in with a mouthful of humble pie. But it is what it is. That's football, buddy. So you figure it out.
It's going to be an interesting Sunday. There's actually a couple of big games that are going on this week. This is also the first week for bye week. So when it comes down to fantasy, I hope you have all the great fill-ins for all your bye week needs.
Make sure to check all your rosters.
Yeah, check all your rosters. I was actually trying to do one of mine earlier in the show. But come check us out tomorrow as we break down The Exorcist. And then we'll be back here next Tuesday for The Exorcist Believer. I'm literally looking forward to that one. We're going to have Jeremy Rachel be on here. That's one of our favorite movies of all time. So I'm looking forward to everybody's thoughts on that. It is the spooky month. Lots of spooky content coming up here. All the retro reviews, the new reviews. And then we're going to end the month on Halloween with Five Nights at Freddy's. It doesn't get much better than that. We will see you guys tomorrow night. Until then, adios.
Go Cowboys. Let's go.
I mean, I may actually get a piece of pie just in case. It'll be a fun visual to start next Wednesday's show with me just eating pie.
Well, do you eat crow or do you eat humble pie? Which one should we go with? I'm just curious.
Go with pie. I can't find any good crow.